Bonjour everyone! In today's video, I'll be showing you how I create this strapless summer top, starting from pattern making to how I put it all together and my mistakes, what I learned, and how I fixed them. A few months ago, I did show you a similar style that I created, but I did it using my bodice pattern, and you can check that out. I will link the video below for you to check out. But this time around, I'm using my torso pattern to create this style, so let's get into the video. This is my torso pattern that has a bust dot. I'm using guideline number 6, which is a combination of 1, 2, and 3. And that's what you use for a strapless top. And this is what my top is going to be. It's a strapless top, so I'm using guideline 6. So I'm starting with the front first. Just like with any garment, you start by putting down your design line and then you start with manipulating the dots and the contour guides. So I'm going to start by creating my design and then using my guidelines to manipulate my garment to what I want it to be. And so I'm starting by putting a quarter of an inch on top of my cross front line, and I'm going to lower my armhole by half an inch as you see here. Next, I'm going to extend that quarter inch mark because when I open my top, I want it to open up and have a smooth point instead of having any V shape going on because this is going to be a curve. So I want to be able to open it and see a smooth point. So I'm going to connect the points now from my armhole to the quarter inch mark. Then I'm using my curve ruler here to create the design line, to finish putting down my design line that I want. And right now it's looking shallow, but it's because I still have to open my guidelines and manipulate it some more. So that's not final yet. That's just a rough draft of what my design will be. And if you've seen my previous video with this style, you may notice a difference. My bust point is lower. So that's something I should have taken into consideration. But here I'm just extending my guideline number 6 to the design line that I just marked down. So that's what I just did here. Now that I have my design line for the top, I'm going to design the bottom. I want the bottom to be flared out, so that's why I'm creating a design. So I went 1.5 inch up from the hem, and that's what I'm marking here. I did not want to use the full length of the torso pattern, so that's what I did. That's why I did that. So I squared across from the center front to that extended middle dot line, and then I just finished shaping my hem that way, my new hem. So I do want more flare for the bottom design, so that's what I'm creating here, putting my design line down. To make this easier to explain, I will say we have two panels that are divided by the center line of the dot, and that is the center front panel and the side front panel. So I want to extend the center front panel and flare it out at the bottom and do the same thing for the side front panel. So when I was creating my pattern, I simply eyeballed everything. I noticed that the center front panel was more narrow and the side front had more shape. Therefore, I added more curve to the center front and less curve for the side panel. So my decision was based on how I was eyeballing everything. But for the sake of making this easier, I'll use measurement. So I extended my center front panel by 3/4 of an inch to add my curve here. And I decided to not curve from the waist because I did not want to smooth this out and end up adding any extra measurement to my waist. I wanted my waist measurement to remain as is. So this is my extension for the center front. Now I'm going to extend the side front panel to create my flare. So I go 1/4 of an inch, that's what it looks like. And then I'm going to smooth that out as well. So I don't bring my curve all the way to the waist because when I'm smoothing it out, I don't want to end up adding any measurement to it. So that's why my curves are about 1.25 of an inch from the waist. Although it doesn't look the same for the side front, I did make the adjustment by starting the curve 1.25 of an inch from the waist down to the hem, and then I smooth that out. I chose this design because I wanted to have more of a bell-shaped front, not just flare, but for it to be like a bell shape. But of course, I didn't add any stiffening material to keep the shape, so it just really hangs. So I don't think that was a good decision. I wish I did things differently, but I'll talk about that more at the end, what I wish I did differently for the front. I'm just using a different marking tool so you can see my lines better. I just thought that my fabric would hold the shape, honestly, but it is more inspired by the Dior bar suit. But of course, they use a different fabric for that one. It is, and they have padding inside to keep it the way it is for the shape. And I'm just using a regular fabric for my top here. So I was not going to get all that action going on. Now that I have my design lines down, I'm going to separate the panels and start manipulating the guidelines and start shaping my design. So with my panels being overlapped, I am using a scrap piece of paper to transfer one end of my panel onto that scrap piece of paper before I cut them out. So I am tracing the extension of my center front panel onto that scrap piece of paper using my tracing wheel that I go over that line with, that curved line, and it's going to leave a perforated mark on that piece of paper, scrap piece of paper. And so that's going to be my center front part. Now I can cut out the side front panel because I have the center front panel traced out. So that's what I'm doing here. Before I finish cutting my panel, I decided to just finish copying down my center front panel onto that scrap piece of paper. So that's what I'm doing here, making sure the hem matches with the side front. And now let's continue with the cutting. I'm cutting all the way through guideline number 6, all the way up to the shoulder line, separating the panels that way. So here I'm cutting off guideline number 6 here. That is what I use to, that's what I'm going to use to finish creating my design. In my opinion, guidelines are mini dots that you use along with your main dots to create pattern manipulation, creating different designs. So guidelines are really extra ease that you're removing from your garments via mini dots. They are just mini dots, but they are really excess ease that you're removing so that your garment can fit better around the curves of your body. So here I am finishing my design line here. Now that my guideline is gone, I can now finish my design line that I want. So here, once you have the guideline closed, you finish the design how you want to have it on your garment. That's what I'm doing here, shaping it the way I want it to be. Finishing the shape at least because I did start it already. So now that the guideline is closed, I'm just finishing it, making sure it is smooth. A part of me wished I closed my dot before I finished my design, but it didn't happen that way. So now I'm closing my bust dot to finish my panel here. So I'm going to overlap it to close it. And next, I'm tipping it down. Then I'm going to use my curve ruler to finish the bust curve. Normally, I like to have my deepest part, my deepest curve of the ruler on the bottom, but I just was not thinking this time. So it was just what it was. I am also removing the Empire guideline as well that you see here. It is very small for my torso pattern. I may have to adjust that on my pattern at some point. I don't feel like it affected my end result, but I do feel like it could have been better or tighter or under my bust. So I will show you that in the result, what I mean. Now that my side front panel is done, I'm going to smooth out my center front panel and finish that. I'm using my Empire Waist guideline here, of course. My personal understanding on guidelines is that you have your pattern piece, you put your contour guidelines down, and then you put whatever design that it is that you want to create on your pattern. As best as you can, you mark that design on your pattern piece. So you can get really creative. Just whatever design it is that you want to do, put it on that piece of pattern paper, and then whatever guideline or dot it touches, that is a guideline you'll have to open and overlap or close or get rid of to finish your design. Whatever guideline it touches, that's a guideline you'll have to deal with to finish your design. So I'm just marking notches here because I like to do that. And I'm using my circle from my bust depth. So that's all for now for the front design. Let's move on to the back. I am going to extend my armhole by 1/2 inch, just like I did for the front. I'm using my side front panel to mark my hem on my side back. Here, I make sure my upper hip lines are touching to help me get the right measurement. Here, I'm using my center front piece to do so for my center back, but I really could have just gone up the same measurement I went up from the front. So I am just making sure drawing a line parallel to that line close to my hem and just finishing my new hem on my back piece here. Next, I'm going to extend a line from where I extended my armhole at that mark, and I'm going to lower my upper bust line at the back by 1 inch. That is where my back is going to start for my back piece. And I'm just going to connect the points here. And I did use the straight ruler first to extend the line because I want to make sure everything is smooth, no V shape going on. To create the same design I did at the front, I extended my center back panel by 5/8 of an inch out and created my curve with my curve ruler. and I am smoothing it out from the waist. I did not start from the waist, just like I did with the front. I started at 1 inch and a quarter from the waist down. The side panel extension is also 5/8 of an inch from the center dot line. That is just me eyeballing it. I did not measure it when I was doing it. I was just guessing. So here I'm doing the same thing I did for the front to transfer out my panel, the extension piece of my panel. I put the scrap piece of paper underneath and using my tracing wheel to finish tracing my side back panel onto that scrap piece of paper. And then I'm going to remove the center back panel now that I have my side back panel traced out. So I'm trimming off my hem here, revealing my new hem, and then I'm going to finish tracing, finish cutting my panels. And you can see I have the guidelines at the back, and of course it interacts with my design, so that is a guideline that needs to be dealt with. So that's just how guidelines work for me. And I'm only emphasizing this because somebody said they didn't understand anything that I was saying when it came to guideline for my guideline video. So hopefully they will see this if they do and it helps them, hopefully. And of course, since the guideline is removed, I had to smooth out the line once I close it. And that is my pattern for the back. It's not done yet, but that's what I have for the panels separated. Now I'm going to add, I'm going to curve out the center back. I don't know if that was a good idea. I think that would have been great to do if I was working on a jacket. But being that I was using a light, I'm using or was using a lightweight fabric, I don't think that was necessary because I was not going to shape my garment. And then, as if it was not enough, I went and added more curve just to, because I'm in my mind, I was trying to create a bell shape pattern, a bell shape curve, bell shape design. So I just feel like I need that. And of course, it would have worked really well if it was a heavy duty fabric for a jacket. But for my garment, I was not planning on adding any stiffener or any padding to keep the shape. So it was unnecessary, honestly, to go out that far. But for the sides as well, I'm going to add some extension, some curve, because I wanted that shape fully. So I added some for my side front and side back that I'm working on the side back now. And it's probably 3/8 of an inch that I extended from the hem to add to my garment here, to add to my pattern here. Pattern. And that is it for my back design. This is all complete now. Of course, my upper hip lines are still in my garment, in my pattern. So I'm using those. I'm going to use those as notch points to make sure my side seams are the way they should be. They are matching. So that's what I'm keeping them in the garment for, to use as notches. So the front side seam, I extended it by 3/8 of an inch as well. So that's what it looks like to me. And then just smooth it out and finish it off. Honestly, I just wanted to create that bell shape. I may do a jacket maybe sometime in the winter that is that style. That is the Dior bar suit or bar jacket. I really love that style. I think it's really beautiful. So I just wanted to make something similar to it, but unfortunately my fabric did not hold up to the stiffness that would require for the pattern to look good like that. And there's just a lot of adjustments that I would need to make as well. I'm just making some adjustments here because I felt like my curve here was not deep enough. It didn't look curvy enough. So I was trying to make some adjustments here for that. And like I said, I use my upper hip lines as a notch point. So that's what I'm doing here to make sure my pieces matches, and that's what I use them for. My hem is the only thing I need to be smooth. So that's what I made sure was smooth, and then I use every line in between as notches. I decided along the way I wanted a facing, I wanted my lining to be different. I also decided to add that multi-size feature to my garment. So I then had to make adjustment and create a facing here. But really my garment could have been done from a few minutes ago. My pattern could have been done. So I decided for my facing to be 2 inches. So that's what I'm marking here. And I only wanted the facing to be on the center front pieces and the side back pieces. For the center back piece, I decided that was going to be where I am going to create the multi-size features with adding the elastic. So I decided I wanted to cut that out differently. So there's no facing for that piece. It's just for my center front pieces and my side back pieces. So I'm just finishing the facing here. by using my curve ruler. Really, I did freehand it a bit and then use my curve ruler to help me finish creating the facing. Totally optional. I think this project definitely humbled me. Just stick to my level and grow from there and stop trying to reach. I reach way too far out. But I'm cutting out my facing here. I'm tracing it out on a scrap piece of paper, and then I'm just going to remove it from my main pattern piece here. I did not cut a separate piece for the lining because I just did not want to go through that much paper. I feel like I'm always trying to save paper, but the paper is very cheap on Amazon, so I don't know why, but I don't feel good about wasting paper. So I do try to cut corners. I do use shortcuts. So this is me tracing my facing. Then I decided I need to mark my notch points where my pieces connect. So that's what I'm doing here with my tracing wheel. And this is all optional. I could have been done with this pattern a few minutes ago, but I decided I wanted to add a facing. So this is what we have here. Now my pieces are all done. Stick around till the next spot where I show you how to cut out the lining and also create the multi-size feature and cut out all the pieces.